So, Mr. MTR, you're here to repay your debt towards me.
Boon, why the hell are you a mob boss now?
I don't know, but you do owe me a co-op. And I'm guessing that's why you're here.
Yeah. that was the reason. Anyway, so you have any material in mind?
Well, not necessarily, but...
It is I, MangaKamen, and I have arrived because this video requires more mystery skulls. Also, I demand a co-op.
What, you think you can just show up and take over my show, on my channel, in my pocket dimension? Think again, buddy. Why should I do a co-op with you right now instead of MTR?
Well, I have a top 5 list of stars that's full of misinformation, hypocrisy, and, of course, cute animal pictures.
Fucking cute animal pictures! Will the madness never end?
Get down!
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce MandJTV Pokevids. He's a Poketuber. I've talked about Tamashi Hiroka before, so you guys likely already know that Poketubers can be really dumb. This guy, big shocker, is really dumb. He's talking about starter Pokemon in this one. I happen to know quite a bit about how bad a starter Pokemon can be. Namely, fucking Emboar!
Well, unlike you, I've actually directly covered Poketubers before, so I'll make sure you're not an idiot here.
And I'm a robot. Just reminding people that I'm in the story.
I'm still here, you know.
Let's get started.
Greetings, Pokefans! Michael here. So this video is probably gonna upset a decent chunk of you guys, so I'm sorry for that in advance. So here's an adorable picture of a puppy to get you in a forgiving mood.
Okay, serious question time for the audience. Why are so many YouTubers using animal pictures in their videos like this? I've seen Mappa and quite a few other higher-up users do this, and frankly, this comes off as condescending to your audience. Like, no one will be able to accept your opinion, so you decide to do, hey look, cute things over here!
I even understand the purpose of the joke. Oh ho ho, I'm saying something controversial. Here's something cute to make you forgive me. Yeah, problem is that it stops working as a joke when literally everyone does it, because we now expect it to happen, and it's not something we expect that adds to the video. If you presented it in a way that played with or subverted audience expectation or surprised us in some way, instead of just straightly playing a joke at that, let's be honest here, wasn't even funny in the first place, then you might have something, but instead it comes off as stale padding.
I mean, hey, if you're gonna play it straight, why not use a picture that's actually related to the video? At least it has something to do with the material we're covering.
Everyone who's ever played a Pokemon game has chosen a starter Pokemon. Unless you've only ever played Coliseum or XD, in which case you didn't have a choice, or you just played Pokemon Ranger, in which case you didn't have one at all. Okay. Anybody who's ever played a main series Pokemon game has chosen a starter Pokemon.
Except Yellow. But I'm nitpicking if I brought it up anyway. Wait.
Okay, well, you try to distract the audience with Litten. I'm going to explain that this opening section here is mostly not relevant. I'm not saying that it's not relevant to the video, I'm just saying it's not relevant to the commentary. It's pretty much just him jerking off to Sceptile. Oh, except this one thing.
Each number in this list will be an evolutionary line that I'll discuss as a whole, rather than any specific evolution.
This bites him in the ass later.
Also, like I said before, I am going to say some pretty mean things about these Pokemon, so if they're some of your favorites, I am very sorry. These are just my opinions, and you're completely entitled to your own. Even if they're wrong. That was a joke.
Tasteless jokes aside, there's that condescending attitude again. Which, while I will admit can be done in a humorous manner, you keep this tone throughout your intro, and it makes it hard to distinguish if you're being serious or hyperbolic to your audience.
Although another problem with your delivery here is that your timing for when you cut the music is just wrong. In this particular instance, you should have cut the music off as you started saying even if they're wrong, or cut it about half a second sooner at the end of the statement, as though whoever's playing the music just went, wait, what, in the sound booth or something.
In addition, like so many other times, yeah, opinions can't be wrong, technically, but what information you base that opinion off of can be wrong, and in this case, will be.
Number 5. Meganium. So I don't actually dislike Meganium much at all. It's just that I needed 5 spots on this list and there are only 18 evolutionary lines, and I just like all but 4 of them more than Meganium.
Then here's a thought, why not just do a top 4 list? While top 5s, 10s, and 15s are common with these lists, there really isn't a set number of what you can do. Some people will argue that's a moot point, but as we'll soon see, his reasoning for Meganium will show that making a top 4 would have been a better choice.
Meganium is on here mainly because it's just unimpressive. Its design isn't really awful, but it's not really cool either. It's just a long-necked dinosaur with antenna and a flower around its neck. And while I do love long-necked dinosaurs, Tropius just does the whole grass-type long-necked dinosaur thing magnitudes better.
Comparing a starter to a non-starter works how exactly? There's so many apples to oranges comparisons here, it's ridiculous. The only thing that they truly have in common, outside of move pool or stats, is that they're grass types that look like sauropods. Meganium's a flower and Tropius is a tree. Tropius happens to also be flying type, while Meganium is a pure grass Pokemon. Granted, some of this could be indicative of reasoning why Tropius appeals to you more than Meganium, but you give literally zero elaboration here, so good job just saying it's better without telling us why. Or for that matter, why comparing a starter to a non-starter makes sense on a list about starter Pokemon specifically.
I will say that I think Bayleaf has the best design of the three, but Chikorita's is the worst. I really don't like excessive jewelry, and Chikorita's neck spikes look like a tacky necklace. Plus its head leaf looks like a misshapen ponytail. They modified it to look way cooler on Bayleaf, but then they replaced it with antenna on Meganium? What?
Because it's a blooming flower, and flowers have these things called stamen, which, surprise surprise, are shaped like antennae. As for the jewelry portion, what? A few beads, or buds in this case, is excessive? Maybe if it had it around their legs or something, but you make it sound as like if anyone wears anything other than a shirt and pair of pants that they're being excessive with their clothing accessories.
And if that's the case, you need to take off your hat.
Okay.
Not you, MTR! You're not even wearing a hat!
And it doesn't help that it's one of the weakest starters in any of the games, not having a type advantage over any of the Johto gym leaders and just being unimpressive overall.
Oh boy, now you've said it. On paper, yes, the line doesn't have an advantage, but let's look a little deeper, shall we? Let's start with the obvious, price of the Ice Gym. Let's take a look at his initial team of the Heart Gold and Silver games. Seal, Dewgong, and a Piloswine. A water type, a water ice type, and an ice ground type. Sounds like those Pokemon all have a similar weakness to grass. Now, I've already debunked you here since you said the Chikorita line has no advantages in the Johto gyms, but since I'm feeling randy today, let's continue. Jasmine, 2 Magnemite and a Steelix. The Chikorita line resists electricity, and thanks to the ground typing, Steelix loses its resistance to grass attacks. Chuck, who only has 2 Pokemon, one of which is the water type Poliwrath. Claire, the only Pokemon that Chikorita line really fears is one of the Dragonairs with Fire Blast. Otherwise, thanks to the water typing, its grass moves can easily damage her Gyarados and Kingdra. Against the ever-threatening Whitney, the line learns Reflect at about the same time you get to face her gym, halving the physical tank that is Miltank. I agree that competitively, yes, the line isn't all that great, but in the games themselves, do your homework.
Meganium was meant to be a wall during the main game, which is a tactic different from what the other starters use, with both Typhlosion and Feraligatr having stats to be both physical and special sweeper, respectively. By the way, I'm not talking about competitive play when I say that, since it's apparent from what the highest base stats are and what moves they learn as they level up.
Quilladin is one derpy looking dude, but not in a cute way. Its nose is way too big and it's just really rotund, but not in a way that works for it like Snorlax. It really just looks like Chespit just got really overweight and tried to cover it up with leaves but couldn't because he's just too fat.
Or it's armor, which is what the line is going for.
Wait, why does being rotund work for Snorlax and not for Quilladin? Hell, Snorlax looks way more overweight than Quilladin does. See, you need to explain why something works in one place and not the other, or I just get to say that Sceptile sucks because Tropius is a better tree dinosaur and Ninetales has better tails.
And Quilladin's eyes are also really off-putting. I can't put my finger on exactly why, but I just really don't like it when it looks at me.
Okay, I'm sick of this. Every time you bring up something that I could also say about Sceptile, if I damn well wanted to, I'm just gonna shut up after this.
Why do I get the feeling that's a lie?
Mostly because it is.
Oh. By the way, still here, just letting everyone know.
Great!
Chestnut isn't as ugly as Quilladin, but it's still not great. First off, its color scheme makes absolutely no sense. Why is it suddenly beige and white? Brown was working just fine before. Well, at least it was on Chespin.
Other than the fact that you say the color scheme doesn't work for Quilladin with that statement right there, Never mind the fact that changing color schemes work for Infernape, who becomes red, white, and gold by the final evolution, when the color difference between Chimchar and Monferno was that Monferno added blue, which is no longer present. You compliment this Pokemon later. This doesn't even touch the many starter lines, including Sceptile by the way, that go into a different shade of the same basic color by their final evolution, if not before. Guess what beige is a lighter shade of? Brown.
Chespin's evolutions were just overall disappointing, since Chespin was so cute and had a lot of potential to turn into something like this. But instead we end up with a fat goblin and a winter Santa turtle.
Oh boy, this argument. You base your expectations on fan creations. That's always a fun thing to do. Look, I get you don't like the design of the evolutions of Chespin, but this is a really weak argument against it since it comes off of being completely whiny that a fan interpretation of a Pokemon that wasn't revealed at the time of it did better than is a moot point. Since, guess what? The fan design has nothing to do with the creation of the Pokemon itself. And it's not really giving Chestnut and Quilladin a fair chance. And two things about your fan design. One, that's crouched over 2, so your complaint can easily be applied to that. And 2, it would render the other two lines' themes, the Witch and the Ninja, to be really weird.
The one fucking time you tell us why something is bad, and you have to show us something to contradict it.
Number 3. Emboar. The first firefighting starter, Blaziken, was awesome and super badass. The second one, Infernape, was still pretty cool. It was a bit weird that they did it twice in a row, but they also did pure water twice in a row, so it wasn't a huge deal. But then this abomination was just the last goddamn straw. Emboar is the pinnacle of the firefighting starter hate. Not only was it the third in a row, which is way too much, but it's just so freaking ugly. I mean, just look at it. The fire around the neck looks like they needed a way to make it more obviously fire type, so they just picked a body part and tossed it on there.
And hey, the same can be said for Infernape, since it has fire on its head. Or how about Charizard? Fire on the tail. Why do they work but Emboar doesn't? This concept is weird since you don't explain how it's obviously a fire type without the flames. Is it because of its coloring? Well, that can't be the case since we have tons of red-colored Pokemon that aren't fire types. Learn to explain, otherwise this comes off as confusing and petty since you showed not only 10 seconds ago Infernape, which your arguments can easily be applied to.
They just threw a tree on the Sceptile's tail!
And the fact that it stands on 2 legs is just so awkward. It looks like it could trip and fall in any minute. Plus it seems like the only reason that it's bipedal is so that it could be fighting type.
Doesn't look like it's gonna trip to me. Looks like it's getting thrown, but not that it would fall down. After all, sumo wrestlers, you know, the thing that Emboar is based on that you completely fucking miss, stand upright just fine, and they happen to be very rotund themselves. I'm thinking you just have something against fat people. Oh, and as for making it bipedal to make it fighting, musketeers, your argument is invalid.
Tepig started out on 4 legs and was really cute. Why didn't they keep it that way?
Seriously, are you really using the quadruped to bipedal as an excuse to hate on Emboar? Other starters have done this, yet they aren't on your list. For example, Mudkip, Froakie, and technically Cyndaquil since we see Quilava on its front paws, and then back to Typhlosion. Why do they get a pass but Emboar doesn't?
Because they aren't pigs?
Does this count as a try-up? You know, for the depth?
No.
Damn it!
We could have had a really cool, tanky and beefy fire pig or warthog.
Someone's obviously never heard of wall breakers, you know, to get past the more defensive teams. Plus, that's the highest HP and attack stack of all fully evolved starters, not counting Mega Evolutions. That last point is a fact, so what the hell are you on about?
But instead we end up with another fat middle evolution wearing... Is that a wrestling leotard?
Yes. Yes, it is. Because it's a wrestler, you dumbass!
Everything about Emboar is just so wrong. Its typing, its posture, it's ugly, it sucks in battle.
Sucks in battle, huh? How so? You never really go into detail in looking on, say, the competitive scene. Oh, look! It has a strategy for the overused tier. And since you don't explain, that's a tacked on complaint that has no water to it.
You know, it's pretty bad when a guy like me, who hates Emboar and thinks its usability is fringe at best with better choices for its purposes all around it, is willing to say that Emboar isn't as bad as you're making it out to be.
And not to mention that face. It looks like it's plotting how to sneak into your room at night and tickle your feet.
Stop looking into my soul!
Number 2, Empoleon. I know that a lot of you guys love this Pokemon, so like I said before, I am very sorry. But this thing is trash. Piplup is adorable, I will say. The writers of the show made a good call not evolving Dons in the anime, because it evolves into the hands-down, no contest, ugliest middle stage evolution starter in existence, and possibly one of the ugliest Pokemon of all time. I mean, just look at this atrocity. What happened to your face, man? And what's with those white dots on its belly? That's not cute. It looks like it was eating too many s'mores and spilled marshmallows on itself and forgot to clean them up later.
You know, this isn't really convincing me that Primplup is actually ugly. Maybe if you didn't try making lackluster jokes and actually, explain your reasoning, then maybe I'd see where you're coming from. But instead, all you're doing is acting childish and entitled just because Primplup was cute, its other form should follow suit. Which can be a complaint for the other members of this list and the other starters in general. Which, if you think about it, Bulbasaur had it worse, turning into a wart-covered dinosaur with a flower popping on its back. Ugh.
You know what else has random circles on its body that don't have any purpose or explanation?
And Empoleon is not much better. I really don't like it when Pokemon have the appearance of wearing clothes, so Empoleon being intentionally designed to look like it's wearing a suit is just so dumb to me.
Oh, I know, right? I mean, it's not like you brought up how cool Blaziken and Infernape are in design, since it looks like Blaziken's wearing a martial art gi, or how Infernape could be wearing a white vest, or shoulder pads, or boots. Sarcasm aside, there's also Greninja, hi there, tongue scarf, or Samurott with its shell helmet, or even Chespin, since it has little leaves on its head that look like a hat.
By the way, Sceptile. Red belt.
And you obviously haven't seen what the Emperor Penguin looks like, since guess what the term penguin suit comes from?
And that trident on its face looks awful as well, like someone just stuck it on there with super glue and hoped for the best. Plus the claws on its wings are just so unnecessary. What did you think you were going to accomplish with those? Carrying toothpicks? And what's with the steel typing? Water Steel is a cool type combination, but it's just not obvious enough on Empoleon.
Neither is the Water Dark typing for Greninja, or how Charizard should have been a dragon.
You know what doesn't make sense as a dragon, though? Mega Ampharos. Like, seriously, you get a fucking perm and that makes you a dragon?
For a second there, I thought that you were going to say...
Oh yeah, also, Mega Sceptile.
The only thing that I see that reminds me of the steel typing is the trident, which as I said before, looks stupid and it's just a f***ing decoration.
First of all, it has blue armor on its body that could easily explain the steel typing, as well as the gold it has on its back and the golden claws too that you complained about. And secondly, the horns do have a reason, and it's explained in the Pokedex since they're used as a symbol of strength and leadership of the Empoleon, which looks like a crown as well.
Empoleon is easily the worst Sinnoh starter, and the fact that Torterra and Infernape can handle it with their ground and fighting moves respectively is just salt in the wound.
This is a moot point since A, Infernape's still a fire type, and thanks to the moves such as Aqua Jet, it can easily deal with Infernape's weak defenses. And B, thanks to Torterra's ground typing, it loses resistance to water, and makes it a lot more susceptible to moves like Ice Beam. And in that regard, Torterra would actually be in the worst camp, since guess what? Ground doesn't offer any resistances to the fire type attacks.
Even if you remove TMs from the equation, Empoleon learns Drill Peck as well, which in case you didn't notice, is super effective against both Infernape and Torterra. So it's not like Empoleon can't also deal with both of its rivals with its own moves as well. In fact, if the only types that the Pokemon get stabbed for matter, Infernape has it worse than Empoleon because he's weak to both Torterra's ground moves and Empoleon's water, and 71 is a lower number than both 88 and 101, so he has lower survivability against any super effective stab attack.
Number 1. Delphox. Delphox. Delphox is the epitome of evolution disappointment. Chespin, Tepig, and Piplup experienced this as well, but Fennekin had it the most severely. My thought process went a little like this. Alright, that's the fire starter. Kinda cute. Not my favorite, but it's not bad. Kinda curious to see what it— Oh! What? What is that? Why is it on 2 legs? And what's with the stick coming out of its ass?
Do you not know basic anatomy? That's its tail! Are you blind?
You know what else had something sticking out of its ass?
It's the tail, you
Off statement,
That's just weird and— Oh dear God, what is that abomination?
Hey, those were my exact words when I saw your video.
Delphox is actually trash, more so than Garbodor, and has gone down in history as the biggest starter disappointment to date. Its design is just so freaking bad.
By your hypocritical standards? Yeah, right. Who's saying that it's the worst starter? Don't say it as if it's a fact, cause guess what? You can play the opinion card all you want, but the moment you start using absolutes, that's when you start putting your own foot in your mouth. What are you, a Sith?
I found a Reddit thread from February of this year, 4 months before this video, asking what people now thought of Delphox. The opinions ranged from, well, what you're saying, to outright loving it, to liking its pre-evolutions more, to liking the final evolution more. Link in the description.
Like with Emboar, putting it on 2 legs feels awkward and unnecessary.
Why? Because it's crouching in the picture you're showing? It's able to move fine in both anime and in the game, so you just saying it's awkward doesn't hold up. Once again, in lieu of actually explaining your points, you come off as childish and petty.
And its appearance is just off-putting. I know they were going for the whole mage thing since Chestnut's the warrior and Greninja's the rogue, but this is just not how it should have been done.
I don't get this line, how it shouldn't have been done, as if you know how the design should have worked. Maybe if you actually explain why the design doesn't work, I'd give you this, but once again, it comes off like you based your expectations on the critter for outside concept art.
It really does sound like you're saying it's bad because it's not what you wanted. Do you watch wrestling by any chance? I feel like you'd get along well with the fan base.
But the freaking hair! What on earth? What idiot thought it was a good idea to give a Pokemon so much ear hair that its wax could power every lamp in America prior to our switch to incandescent bulbs?
I don't know, probably the same guy who designs the Pokemon, like Ken Sugimori. I looked and I didn't find any other designers for X and Y that really claimed on Delphox or any other starters. So congratulations, you just called the creator of possibly even your favorite Pokemon an idiot. Now, like I said, I didn't see if he specifically created them, but he was the chief Pokemon designer, so he did probably have a hand in it. Also, very classy, call the designer an idiot. That really shows how mature you are.
It's just weird and gross. And like I said before, I don't like clothes on Pokemon. So Delphox wearing a tunic made entirely of hair is just incredibly dumb.
But red belts, martial art gis, and tongue scarves are A-OK!
Delphox is so bad that it's not even in Pokken Tournament and Breaksin is instead. Even the people who make these games acknowledge that they f***ed up.
Delphox is so bad, its pre-evolution is in Pokken Tournament instead. Okay, what about Greninja, Gyarados, Superior, most of the evolutions, Whiscash, Misdreavus, Dugtrio, and Marowak, all of which had pre-evolutions appear and not the final forms. What's that? It's because it makes more sense for the pre-evolutions to be assists? Then why wouldn't Breaksin be a better fit for the roster than Delphox, much like Pikachu was chosen over Raichu twice? Saying that something wasn't in another product doesn't mean it was an abject failure in design. It means that they felt something else was a better fit. That's like saying Infernape's a bad design because he's not in Pokken.
Don't you mean Sceptile?
I wish. Sceptile's actually in Pokken. He sucks, though.
Look, I'm not gonna say I don't have my own likes and dislikes when it comes to the Pokemon world. Before Mega Evolution came around, I thought Charizard was the worst starter of all time. Mainly due to it being a glass cannon with weaknesses to rock, water, and electric, being overhyped due to the anime and such. And all in all, it comes up as a rather simple design, which for me and my subjective taste isn't something I'm for. But that's actually me explaining the point without coming off as a spoiled brat. Can you guys tell that I picked Squirtle for my first Pokemon? But back to my point, you're more than welcome to have your opinions on what starters are good and bad. When you start using double standards to berate designs, you open yourself to a lot of crap. And frankly, no amount of cute animal pictures and supposed joking around won't save you. What's worse is that you were all over the place with your points, which ranged from in-game usage to subjective design choices that had a lot of childish jokes and insults in lieu of actual points, and all in all, having your biased double standards slapping your viewers in the face constantly. This was the first video I ever watched of yours, and frankly, if the rest are like this, then your content isn't really for me. I'm not actively hating on you for your choices, but rather your justifications as to why they're on the list.
See, here's the thing. I agree with a good bit of your list. 3 of your 5 entries are ones that I would have listed among the worst as well. But not only did I find fault with your reasoning behind them, mostly because there really doesn't seem to be any real reasoning, and the criteria for a Pokemon to be considered for the list seems to shift randomly. It just doesn't make a lot of sense in the end, and makes it difficult to follow your train of thought, even when you do elaborate. So my advice comes in 2 pieces. First, elaborate your points. But hey, that's so short and to the point it may as well be the last bit of a sharpened number 2 pencil. Advice number 2 is this. Think about what criteria matter the most and the least, and make it clear to the audience how you're coming up with your conclusion. That way we can at least follow your train of thought. even if you don't explain it to the utmost detail. And hey, MangaKamen, I've got some advice for you too.
And what would that be?
Get out of my pocket dimension, you brony trash!
Oh yeah? And how are you gonna...
Huh. Hey, don't you normally kick people in the nuts or something?
This is more fun.
And now it's time for my final thoughts. Damn it!